We had a family gathering over Easter, including my Auntie Dot and her daughter Louise and Louise's family. Auntie Dot isn't related to us. She's married to my Uncle Len, who came out to Australia on the same ship as my dad, and they've been like brothers ever since. I work for a small municipal department in a
I'm
rural.
going to be blunt. I don't like Louise. If I had my own way, I'd have nothing to do with her. But I love my aunt and uncle, and I'm Uncle Len's medical decision maker, so I have to suffer her presence. Uncle Len is in a nursing home because of his frail health. If I gave you the full list of my reasons for disliking Louise, I'd never get to the petty revenge. But here are the edited highlights. She does mean and hurtful shit and then brushes it off with, but I didn't mean to, or I was only trying to help, or but I'm just saying what I feel, including the time she tried to stop my sisters from going to my mum's funeral 20 years ago, because they're fostered and not real family. The irony has been noted. She's also an Olympic hopeful in the heavyweight competitive child raising event. Auntie Dot and Louise arrived with a frilly green dress and matching bloomers for my 6-month-old, Vampira. She has 2 teeth and likes fingers. While I was settling the adult guests in and handing out chocolate ovoids to the younger kids, my partner Martin, dressed Vampira in her new outfit. She looked like an adorably cross frog in a frock. Auntie Dot had a cuddle and asked Louise to take a couple of photos. Then Louise wanted a cuddle and started rattling on about how Vampira was 6 months old and can't sit up unaided, but her wonder kids, aged 5 and 7, were sitting up and playing the grand piano at 4 months. Okay, I'm exaggerating. They don't have a grand piano. When Vampira started getting squirmy and irritable, Martin said she probably had a tummy ache and tried to take her back. Louise kept saying she was good with babies and she would soon get Vampira settled. Martin and I were telling Louise in increasingly loud and firm tones to give her back, and Louise kept insisting Vampira would settle down for her. After a while, Vampira relaxed and gave Louise a toothy smile. Louise beamed back and said, "See? I told you." I remember getting a look from Martin that said, "Well, we tried." Seconds later, Louise shoved a wailing Vampira back at Martin and sprinted for the bathroom. You see, what I hadn't told Louise was that we've been introducing cereals into Vampira's diet because a growing baby cannot live on fingers alone, and it hasn't been going well. Vampira had unleashed a punami, which leaked out of her nappy, up the back of the new dress, and onto Louise, and it was one of her most odoriferous efforts yet. Martin did a clean-up and complete outfit change, and gave Vampira her favorite teething dragon, so she was soon happy-ish. But the green dress and bloomers were beyond saving, and Louise's top might not make it either, all of which could have been avoided if she'd just handed Martin the baby when he'd asked. Sawsloo, but I'm not paying for a new top. But the petty revenge cherry on top of the baby poo sundae came at dinner. The meal started with pureed veggie soup, and my middle sister asked if Louise wanted to feed Vampira, seeing as you are good with babies. Louise angrily declined. I pretended to pout and accused Louise of hurting Vampira's feelings, saying, "But she didn't mean to." I'd been waiting nearly 20 years for my chance to say that back to Louise, and it felt good. So recently I had a dream that felt like I actually lived through it. I also had this dream throughout multiple nights, continuing from the night before. The dream starts off as a normal day of me waking up, but everything seems vintage as an example. Houses were made from cobblestone, and you only saw people taking cars if they were rich. Strangely enough, there were people referring to the lower class as my servant, and it seemed that I was in the lower class without a master. As I'm walking to school, it looked oddly similar to my elementary, but people I've met in high school and sports were there. I get called out by a group of people and I decided to run, guessing bullies not too sure. When I get to school, I take my bag to my desk and I get into a conversation with many people, one being my best friend, let's call Jane. Jane and I seem to have been friends, even that she was considered as and me a low class. After class is lunch, and I went and sat on a bench before I was called by a coach, volleyball, and so was Jane. We were told that the guys and girls are pitted against each other, blah blah blah. Not really much that was important. After lunch, we had a study hall, and Jane come up to me asking me if I was interested in becoming her servant, and I agreed for reasons I don't really know. After this, I was respected throughout school and even came home in a car. Like I said, only the rich had a car. Once I got home, I look around for my parents, but only find a note saying, "We heard you got yourself a master, go live with them, we love you, son." And so I listened to the note, and so next thing I know, I'm in their house, same house as in real life. Later on, I'm eating on a separate table from them, and Jane tells me she won't be making me do work and such, but she actually has an offer for me. If I become her boyfriend, I can also get the benefits of being rich. But I must also fight in her name as a servant of the Fight Club. In the dream, this club was the best way to earn rep and get money, kind of like a pro boxer and such. I agreed and was always fighting, but in return, we slowly got closer and closer in the relationship to the point that we would kiss. I became a top fighter and retired and lived in a house with Jane, but was later stabbed by Jane and left to die in an alley. I then actually woke up and wrote this. I think that was the end of the dreams, but I'll update if I get anything else. Does the dream mean something, or is it just a dream? I was 24 years old. I was about to be evicted from my apartment because I couldn't pay rent. I had lost my job and no longer had an income. I began to starve. My only nutrition came from free popcorn offered at a grocery store, which was a 30-minute walk away from my apartment. Shortly before I lost my apartment, I came to the realization I could dress up in a costume, go trick-or-treating by myself, then survive by eating candy. I didn't have a costume. I was starving to death and the fatigue was severe. I came up with the idea to put on a bunch of Ed Hardy clothes. I came up with an alibi. The reason for my costume was because I was the ghost of Ed Hardy, famous tattoo artist. Imagine a skinny 24-year-old pale guy going door to door, asking for candy with a black cloth sack. I looked like a criminal. I got so much candy. I could not believe the generosity of the people that I interacted with. Complete strangers chilling at home who were expecting children filled my bag with candy. Some people looked shocked, others found it funny. I still can't believe I worked up the courage to do that at age 24. After about an hour of trick-or-treating, I returned home to my apartment. The door lock was broken because a meth head kicked my door in a few weeks prior. It didn't feel like a safe home because of that. I couldn't lock the door. I proceeded to fill my stomach with as many candy bars that I could. I packed my stomach with chocolate. Due to extreme starvation followed by heavy nourishment, I experienced a very strange, intense euphoria. It felt as though I smoked a large amount of marijuana. Lights became dim, my vision shifted to fuzzy, and an incredible sense of peace washed over me. I felt so calm high, I ended up blissfully falling asleep in my queen-sized bed. The fear of my housing situation melted away, and all I felt was tranquility. I never get to share this story. It's one of the few highlights of my life. This occurred about a month and a half ago, and I just can't shake it. Hopefully, sharing helps me release the experience, helps me finish unpacking. My boyfriend and I decided to hit the beach one last time, both early 30s, before changing into comfy clothes and Ubering to the airport. We had been playing in the waves all week, huge body crashers from an oncoming tropical storm. He's 6'6" and I'm 5'2". Even enjoying the shallower waters was challenging for both of us. There had been a full-grown man enjoying the water to our left about 30 yards away, alone. Between us was an older couple. They started screaming, "Hey, hey, hey!" My attention was drawn to them waving at the man who looked as if he was diving at first, as I saw a foot in the air. But soon we made the dreadful realization that his head hadn't come up yet. My boyfriend asked me if he was playing with someone. He wasn't. I remembered noting him early when entering the water to be there alone. The couple starts screaming for a lifeguard, prompting everyone in the immediate vicinity to start panic screaming. We are talking at least 75 people on Myrtle Beach. With just one head sweep of the beach, the victim started drifting closer down the coast towards us, but further out very quickly. I still hadn't seen his head. Just as he told me the man wasn't going to make it, my boyfriend began to swim out. He is no athlete, but thankfully he swims twice a week at the YMCA. But regardless, my brain went radio silent as I watched and calculated every stroke it would take for me to reach his location if my boyfriend's head went under. There are people now all around me watching and screaming for a lifeguard who is so far away. I swim till the water hits my throat and I wait for him to swim over to me, and the lifeguards who showed up then via four-wheelers, he struggled to drag the waterlogged man. What was maybe 4 minutes felt like 4 years. You can imagine the rest. The unresponsive man, the family members going insane, my boyfriend instantly puking the gallon of water he just swallowed, bystanders coming around to help him so the lifeguards could focus their efforts on the victim. The gentleman regained consciousness. We left, boarded our plane, and hardly spoke for the entire flight. In my family, I am known as a control freak when it comes to cooking. Our family traditionally holds 2 dinners a year, and all relatives gather for them, about 30 people. Before I started organizing them, dinners were very late, and there were always some problems with poorly prepared dishes and the amount of added spices and seasonings. I put things in order. Now I have a summary table for each dinner, which shows everything needed to prepare a large-scale feast. At first, the family was dismissive of my method, but after everyone was convinced of its usefulness, they began to help me and made me responsible for organizing dinners. Since then, dinners began exactly at the appointed time. Guests praised the dishes and asked for more, which usually does not happen so often. Food preparation takes 1-2 days. I don't require help in cooking because I know I'm meticulous and pedantic, but if someone expresses a desire to help, I ask them to strictly adhere to the cooking technology. I'll also add that my mother worked as a cook for a year, and my daughter-in-law is studying cooking. So, to the situation, another dinner was planned on Sunday, and, as usual, I was in charge of organizing it. My mother, sister-in-law, aunt and uncle could help me. It was the daughter-in-law's first family dinner, and she offered to help. When we started cooking, my mother began to do one thing or another wrong, and to every comment I made, she answered, "Calm down, so what? What's wrong? It doesn't affect anything." The problem was that she did too many things wrong, missed too many required steps, so I had to redo or carefully check almost everything for her. But even after I said that her help was not needed, she continued to help. My patience ran out when, while discussing the cooking process with my daughter-in-law, she corrected me. I was about to object, but my mother intervened and said, "I think you should cool off in the pool and let the experienced people sort it out." I agreed and, taking a glass of wine and my table with a dinner plan, spent the whole day by the pool, ignoring all attempts to call me back. Well, dinner was late, the dishes were undercooked and poorly seasoned, and none of the guests asked for more. Later, my mother said that I ruined the dinner and humiliated them in front of the whole family out of revenge, and that I shouldn't have taken her words so personally. It was just a stupid family joke. By the way, I love organizing these family dinners, and yes, my mother's daughter-in-law behaved as usual.